Welcome into another live episode of the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Rob Stats Guerrera. Steph is in Mobile right now, boots on the ground. A lot of good stuff. Can't wait to catch up with her and all her notes and everything. But we do have to discuss Robert Saleh's back. There's a new special teams coordinator. Who should the 49ers target in free agency off the bat? And how good is this offseason already started? Stick around right after this. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Rob Stats Guerrera. This is the Bully Ball Podcast. Rob is stepping in for Steph Sanchez. Couldn't have asked for a better pinch hitter. I know that's a baseball reference, but Rob, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Should I shrink down in the chair? Because I know Steph is like a half foot shorter than me. Maybe I need to scrunch in.
I mean, if anybody's following Steph on Twitter, and obviously, Steph, I love you, man. This is not but she's got a video with KJ Wright where she's talking to KJ Wright, but it looks like this. Like she's like she's literally pointing the camera all the way up, and I'm just like, my goodness, he can't be that tall, right? Like I don't think, unless you want to find it real quick, Rob. But there is some good stuff in there. He's talking about Robert Saleh as well too. But we'll play it real quick. Can't hear it.
Now, so Saleh was my coach my first 3 years in the NFL. And I saw him work himself from the ground all the way up. And so I actually talked to him yesterday. He's excited. We're ready to roll. Let's get things back on track.
Now, what value are you getting from getting to see these defensive linemen, edges up close, coaching them hands-on?
Yeah, so for a guy that played linebacker his whole life and has coached linebacker, it's really cool to see it, from the D-line perspective, working those guys on the edge. Have the guys in the trenches, just really focus on the attacking, getting upfield, getting vertical, penetration, just kicking tail up front. It's been really cool to see it, really cool to work with those guys.
Well, that's kind of indicative of the energy around this hire, right? And I want to start here. Obviously, we wanted Robert Saleh. Obviously, the 49ers wanted Robert Saleh. I don't think any of us had a problem with them having him number one on the board. I think we were a little taken aback by their process. And it felt like all the eggs were in the basket for Robert Saleh. And then the Jacksonville thing happens. And then he gets back to Dallas. And then you start to have this kind of fear creep in of, well, if the 49ers swing and miss on Saleh, now what? But process be damned, the result was great. What are your thoughts on Robert Saleh being back and us running it back? And we might as well just bring back DJ Jones and and K'Wan Williams and everybody, right? What's D Ford up to these few days?
If you hit a flush on the river, you could still win the pot, right? And that's essentially what the 49ers did. They got lucky. They got lucky that their number one option, that it didn't work out, that the Jags fired Trent Baalke and then grabbed Liam Cohen back. You could say it doesn't matter, and okay, you're right. Like, they got their guy, but the process was shaky. It was definitely very shaky. And I'm grateful that it worked out. I still don't know, is Robert Saleh the perfect guy to coordinate this defense? I don't know. It's not 2019 anymore, but at least this offseason is off to a better start than last offseason.
No matter when it's shaky or not, you always just say never a doubt. Never a doubt. We always knew that he was going to end up landing here, right? Never once was worried, never sweat even a little bit. But yeah, I do think that regardless of whatever it is that you believe this defense will be, it's got to be a markedly improved defense, especially from a scheme standpoint. And while the scheme is going to stay the same, there's no scheme change that's going to happen here. It's going to be run much finer. The play calls are going to be better. And there is the allure of players that want to follow Robert Saleh to the 49ers, and a lot of them happen to be former 49ers. I believe it was Javon Kinlaw, DJ Reed, all of them reached out. Sauce Gardner even reached out. Not that that means Sauce Gardner's on his way, although let's read the tea leaves and put on a little bit of a thinking cap, and maybe, but I think all of those things lead to improvement. And there are a lot of people that feel like whatever happened with the Jets wasn't a product of Robert Saleh, more that the Jets are jetsing, and the Jets will always jet. And no matter who the coach is, and God bless Aaron Glenn, he's saying all the right things, but my God, are you up against it? I think no matter what, everything feels good from this standpoint moving forward about all the people that have kind of around in league circles talk very highly of Robert Saleh, regardless of the results, even though that franchise was hijacked, Rob.
Coaches leave all the time. We don't always see players from their former team completely on their own express admiration, positivity. Like they're letting it out there like, hey, good for Robert Saleh. They're happy about this. If he was not liked, if they viewed him as part of the problem, and don't forget, he was fired like week 5 or week 6 this year, they wouldn't be doing that. So I think it's just a good sign in general. They clearly liked him. They clearly respected him. And, great, because that just leads me more to believe that the Niners got a good hire.
The other thing is, and I think this is the part that has me the most excited, is the last 2 years we've watched Kyle Shanahan be very hands-on with the defense, whether that's in-game, whether that's game planning. And that's well and good because you do want your head coach to wear many hats. But I do think that Robert Saleh being here allows him to say, I don't have to go into that defensive room anymore. Sure, I may have a suggestion. Sure, I may have, a question, right? But if you listen to the Play Callers podcast, and I think it was very evident that Saleh and Shanahan have this friendly competition where there's only a certain amount of defensive minds who can challenge Kyle Shanahan. When Kyle Shanahan asked the question, do you have a retort or an answer? I don't feel like he always thinks that he's right, especially when you come up with the right answer. When you're doing math, you have to show your work. And I think that's what Kyle Shanahan's and Saleh's relationship is here's what I think. And Saleh will say, no, this is what I think. And this is boom, boom, boom. And then by that time, Kyle will say, hey, you know what? You're right. Good call. There needed to be someone who can actually not challenge, but not be walked all over. So for me, now Kyle can get back to what was the main issue, I believe, this season with the 49ers was offense, being creative. He did a lot of other things. He's the personnel guy. He's running defense, and now he's on. No. Look at the play sheet. Let's get this offense back rolling. And now you have someone that you can trust on the back end. I think that part of this hire makes this an invaluable hire.
I do like the idea of someone that's there that can challenge Kyle. And we heard about they would have shouting matches about stuff. And that is good. He lost a lot of the people that were able to sort of keep up with him and compete with him at that level. And you can't fake that. If he hired a new defensive coordinator, they wouldn't have that right away because that takes time to build up. It takes time to build up that equity with Kyle of, okay, this guy is at that level with me. I should listen to him and we can have it out. And it's hard when you lose all those people. They lost Mike McDaniel. They lost LaFleur. They lost D'Amico Ryans. Now to have one back, I do think is really valuable. And to have a guy back now in Robert Saleh that has head coaching experience, right? Because before maybe Kyle could have been like, yeah, but you don't understand this part of it because you've never been where I am. Well, now Saleh could say, I have been where you are. So I think that only helps. I'm with you on all of that. The second part of what you said is the only thing that I sort of get a little nervous about. Because like it or not, Kyle Shanahan, you are the head coach. You are responsible for all of it. Even if you don't, if you want to leave the defense to Robert Saleh, the buck ultimately stops with you. You can't just throw your hands up and say, well, that's not what I do. No, man, you are the head guy. You're responsible for all of it. Special teams, defense, ultimately it falls to you. And I hope that he understands that the goal can't just be, now I don't have to ever think of worry about that again.
Yeah, I don't think he's putting it out of his mind, but he certainly isn't going to be as invested, right? Like when we heard about Nick Sorensen, we heard all preseason that he was listening into Nick Sorensen's play calls. That seems like a lot of work, even if it is in the preseason, because you're trying to vet the guy that you ended up with, right? Now, there's not going to be a preseason game where he's locked in on that or anything like that. Like, it's not something he'll ignore, but it's not something that he needs to give that much attention to, because we do remember the year before that, Steve Wilkes, he's there at halftime making adjustments, telling him what he's seeing and everything as well too. Now, it's not that he's going to ignore it. So I should possibly rephrase what I meant. I don't think he's going to ignore it, but it's not nearly as a concern as much as it was with a first-time play caller and someone with Steve Wilkes, where it seems like your goals and your scheme was detached from the the overall goal. So I think that's what it's just relief. It's not I'm ignoring defense. That's it. I'm sure they'll go back and forth. And then a little bit to your point about Saleh as well too. A little bit more seasoned. If you listen to Matt LaFleur and when he talked about how he was an advisor there, that he helped the offense by talking defense. So there are these little things that can be brought here. Nothing wrong with a guy who's a little bit more seasoned, obviously a high energy guy. Look, again, I can scoff at the process all I want. The result was they got the guy that they wanted, and there's no doubt in my mind that this defense is ready for improvement with the draft coming up, with free agency, and with this play caller, with this defensive play caller that they know very well and I think is respected around the league.
Now go help Robert Saleh because he needs
Mhm.
help. They need reinforcements on the defensive line. They need at least one more linebacker. They need help at nickel corner. Like, give Saleh the pieces to be able to implement the system that he wants to run, which we all know, pressure with the defensive line, 7 back in coverage, that type of thing. Because to expect him to work with what they have now and work miracles is unrealistic.
For sure. For sure. So DJ Reed, come on back. Hassan Reddick, let's see. If you guys want to follow, Saleh, these are all good things. Some guys that I'm looking at in free agency, BJ Hill from Cincinnati. He's a great defensive tackle in terms of rotation and can help. And Azeez Ojulari. Azeez Ojulari is somebody who is a young guy. He was an edge guy that I feel like doesn't get the love that he deserves. So they can do all of these things. When you look at the secondary, it sounds like Hufanga is going to have a sizable market. And I think when you hear former All-Pros available, somebody's going to jump on that. So Malik Mustafa, what happens, Jair Brand? Do you bring in someone else? Do you draft a safety? You feel good with Lenore. You feel good with Renardo Green. But you're right. A lot of what Saleh, does is rush 4, drop 7, and the different ways that you can disguise those things. When he was with the Jets, obviously they have a great secondary. Michael Carter II, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed. Like, these are studs. Like, these are great players. So now it's going to be interesting to see how he elevates this defense with his scheme and how the scheme isn't something that needs to be learned because it's already been in the same building. So I love this move, obviously, because of all of these things. There's not really too many negatives to take away from this.
And I think the job, too, for Kyle Shanahan is, hey, KJ Wright, follow Robert Saleh everywhere. You are the next guy in line. And because you don't know how long Saleh is going to stick around. He may only be there for 1 year. So the Niners have to have somebody, hopefully somebody on staff that can step up if need be. I know that Saleh is going to have a lot of input on the defensive guys they go after in the offseason and in the draft. So that's part of it too. So KJ Wright, you got to get up to speed, be in Robert Saleh's hip pocket, because if he's gone for a year, you're back in this boat, and it's tough to replace quality coaches with more quality coaches.
100%. And it does feel like a little bit of the seat being warmed up for KJ Wright, because you can expect Robert Saleh to be back in the head coaching cycle again next year, have his name come up, be interviewed. All of those things are going to happen. I don't think that this year was anything of a fluke. And again, if you're looking around at the perception, it's more about the Jets really stink. And maybe Robert Saleh was in a no-win situation because, again, the team got hijacked. When you let Aaron Rodgers run amok, he brings all his buddies. And then when it doesn't work, you blame the head coach, who probably wasn't even on board with all of that. So, again, I do think that this is great. And if he does stick around 2 more years, then the 49ers could possibly manipulate the comp pick, formula that they've been so successful with a minority coach getting a head coaching job. And again, KJ Wright does feel like, somebody who's going to be next. And as we heard with the video with Steph, was talking about the first few years that Saleh was actually his coach. And, Robert Saleh, DeMeco Ryans, KJ Wright, former player, those are the types of guys that will continue with this defense and try to add to it as going forward.
It's hilarious to me that the owners were so mad at the 49ers for all the comp picks they got because of all the minority people that were hired and got jobs at other places. Like, the owners got really mad. How ticked off do you think they're going to be when the 49ers get comp picks for the same minority coach when he gets hired again away as head coach?
How dare you find minority head coaches who deserve jobs and do well? Like, what is your deal, 49ers? Why would you do that? But, it just, we talk about this franchise so much, and we talk about, the players and how they've drafted and what they've been able to do. But, like, I still feel like no matter what, we understand McDaniel, all of them go, like, it's still not talked about enough how many of these guys are respected in league circles and move on and get head coaching jobs as well too, and how good the 49ers are at identifying talent in their building and with their buddies as well too. Let's make sure we put it out there.
But also, like, This staff and team got raided. The friggin' Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl again. Andy Reid's still there. Steve Spagnuolo's still there. Nobody hires Chiefs coaches. Matt Nagy's like the only guy I could think of that got hired away. Like, other than that, nobody wants these guys, and they're all friggin' great.
Well, it could be Spags. It's like, listen, I got a good thing going here. I'm not trying to get out of here. We're winning bowls. I think he has a claim to the greatest defensive coordinator in football history, especially because of his Super Bowl performances. So I don't know if it's that anybody doesn't want him. I think people are interested in him. I just don't think he wants to leave. Why break up a good thing?
Well, I guess. I thought he said last year that he wants to be a head coach again, though. Maybe I just dreamed that because I was desperate.
Well, maybe he did, but when the Raiders come a knocking, you're like, you know what? Maybe I'll just wait another year. I'm okay.
That's true. He might be a lot more choosy this time.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of coaches, it's not just a defensive coordinator. We do have a special teams coordinator, Brant Boyer, who also worked with Robert Saleh with the Jets. The national nightmare is over, San Francisco 49er fans. It's not Brandon Staley. It's not Nick Sorensen. Both are not going to be here moving forward. But, Rob, do you have any stats to back up the Brant Boyer thing? I'm of the mind that if you know the special teams coordinator's name, something's wrong. Like, I don't need to know your name. I don't need to know where you came from. The less we hear about you, the better, because it means you're doing a good job. When we know who the guy is, Brian Schneider and this guy, and I don't want to know. Just fix it. His name should be Just Fix It. What do you think?
So there's a couple things that I did like about Brant Boyer. First of all, just in general, he's been with the Jets since 2016. Mm-hmm. They have had multiple coaches in that time. If you can stick around through multiple regimes, that says a lot about who you are. That says you're really good at your job, because most of the time, new regime likes to get their people in place. It was the same thing that I gave Eric Armstead a lot of credit for. All the coaching staffs that came in San Francisco, they always kept Eric Armstead. Why? Because he was a good dude and a good player. So that says something about Brant Boyer. But also, during his entire 9-year Jets tenure, the Jets were tied for second in total touchdowns, second in block punts, tied for fifth in special teams points scored, and opponent kickoff return average. So this guy knows what he's doing. And again, if the Niners only got average special teams next year, that would be a huge jump from what they have had. Last year, they were 30th in punt return yards allowed and 24th in kick return yards allowed. So even average would be a 10-spot jump.
That's all the 49ers needed last year, was a net zero unit. And they couldn't even get that. And I do think that there's another little piece of this, is that Boyer is very good at identifying talent along the special teams. And we've seen the 49ers do that. George Odom, Chase Lucas, like, you get these guys that are career special teamers, but they did draft Xavier Gibson, who's a hell of a returner. I mean, they won a game against the Buffalo Bills just based on that. And I do think that there is going to be a little bit of a change in the personnel on the special teams. And I do think Boyer has a lot to do with that in terms of identifying good special teamers. And again, who's going to follow him from New York? Who's going to say, hey, you're with this team that, should be on the cusp of, a playoff run next year, and, and we love you, coach. Why not? I think those are the two things that we need to look at with Boyer and Saleh. The problem with the Jets was never who they have, the roster, the sum of their parts. They've got studs almost at many positions. I don't want to say all of them. Got studs all over that team. The problem is the Jets are the Jets. It doesn't matter who you have. Almost anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So what about those players that just say, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. I can't do this anymore. Coach, you got a spot for me? I'll go over there. I'll play for peanuts because I know that I'll be competing for something, and I love the way that you coach.
There has to be something to, like, you're in the Jets and you're on the special teams. You're like, hey, we're killing it. Like, and it doesn't matter, right? Our efforts are being wasted by this offense that's just so miserable. If you're Brant Boyer, don't you say to those guys, like, hey, come here and do the exact same thing that I've already proven to you that we can do together, except this time we're going to have a loaded roster and a coach that is free to do what he wants to do, and we're going to compete for division titles and playoffs and Super Bowls.
Exactly. And you have to hope that that's what the the thought process is for a lot of free agents going into this season is this season is viewed as a one-off based on the injuries, based on all the bad luck, based on all the personal tragedies, and you still believe that this roster is still up there, and it will be. And you're going to get another draft class. You are going to have another crack at free agency. So this team can only improve moving forward. I want to ask you a question because Pro Football Focus came out, and this is speaking about free agency. Pro Football Focus came out with an article about the best and worst free agent signings for each team in 2024. Do you want to take a guess at who the best free agent signing was in their opinion?
Boy, that is I mean, who are the options to choose from? That's the
All right,
problem.
Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins, Yetur Gross-Matos, Rock Ya-Sin, that's it. And then the rest are like a bunch. It's a few other people. I don't want to give you the answer. Jordan Elliott.
I guess Leonard Floyd, but
Hmm.
even that wasn't overly impressive.
No, not Leonard Floyd. I couldn't believe this one because it had to be Leonard Floyd for just purely playing all the games and just being a high motor guy. It had to be him, right? It was Isaac Yiadom.
What? He lost his job. What are we talking about?
And what's funny is they said it's Isaac Yiadom, but he had a really good run defense grade, but it made up for how bad his coverage was. I was just like, what? I was like, what? You wrote that? You typed that out. So yeah, what you want in your corner is good run defense, not corner ability.
Right. It's like St. Elmo's Steakhouse is known for their cocktail sauce.
Yeah,
I'd like the
exactly.
steakhouse be known for the steak.
Right, exactly. And then the worst free agent signing they said was Jordan Elliott in his lone season. You know, it was his highest overall grade in the NFL, 47.6 this season. But I just thought it was funny because it had to be Leonard Floyd just for the fact that he had double-digit sacks. How is it not him? Isaac Yiadom, and then to cite his run defense grade saying 76.1. That's exactly what I want from my corners. I need run defense. Forget the coverage stuff. That stuff's overrated, Rob.
Right. That's why you sign corners for run defense.
You want them to get their helmet dirty, but you don't want them to be known for that. That is not a good thing unless they're a safety, maybe. You know, that's the only way I can see that, getting out there. But I just thought that was funny to bring that up. But we are talking about free agency, and I do think that we're going into an offseason where we know Brock Purdy is going to get his bag one way or another. So that's an investment. Everybody that's worried about the cap should realize that this first-year deal will probably actually bring the 49ers lower in salary cap, and they've done a great job right now stacking up for this moment, and they still have other players that they could bring back. It does sound like Matt Mayoko's and a lot of other people are whispering about a Dre Greenlaw 1 year, $6 million prove-it deal. I would absolutely love that. That's up to him because I feel like after 30 snaps, there's a lot of teams that are just like, nah, we're good, man. We know you can play. And if they come up with more money, does he just take that to come back? Neither here nor there. I do have an idea, and it's somebody that a lot of people have talked about. I do have an idea for a splash off-season signing to protect your investment in Brock Purdy. And yes, I'm talking about the offensive line. And that would be Drew Dahlman from the Atlanta Falcons. And a little bit of backstory on Dahlman. 26 years old, only played in 9 games, suffered an ankle injury that kind of ended his season, and he's an elite run blocker. Pass blocking, he's gotten better this season. So I think when you look at his pass blocking grade and it sits in the 60s, you say, oh, well, that's not that good. But I would advise you to go through his play and watch that a lot of that grade was smashed in the first week by Hayward and from the Steelers. He was a menace in that game. But he steadily got better. This is his best season in pass blocking. But some little stuff that I wanted to go through, and I think what really, really makes this, a slam dunk signing, not only the age, but on 259 run blocking snaps, he finished as the number 5 run blocking center, 79.8. Listen to the names in front of him. Eric McCoy, Creed Humphrey, Frank Ragnow, and Tyler Linderbaum. But I wanted to point this out as well, too. This is really important. The difference in run blocking by scheme. He is an elite zone blocker. 75.7% of his snaps were zone blocking, which is in Atlanta. 82.3 run blocking grade. 65 2.0 in gap blocking. So, Rob, am I off the rocker right here? Because the 49ers have signed Weston Richburg in 2017 to a 5-year deal. Weston Richburg suffers 2 season-ending injuries, retires from the NFL. Then the 49ers go into that horrific 2020 season with Hornets Grasu and Ben Garland and almost anybody that they could find able-bodied to play center. 2021, you get Alex Mack. Now, 2022, 2023, 2024 has all been Jake Brendel. There's been varying levels of success. I don't want anybody to yell at me, but this year was by far Brendel's worst. Is this the year that the 49ers finally really get in there and invest? I think it just has to be, because they're 26-year-old centers who can run block like that and their arrows pointing up. They don't hit the market every single day, right?
I completely agree with you. And look, we know center is important in this scheme. They're the ones that call out the protections. So it's very unlikely that the Niners are going to draft a guy and say he's going to be our starting center next year, because mentally that's a lot to put on anybody, in addition to adjusting to the NFL and all of that stuff. So if that's the case, they're going to have to go out and sign somebody, because you cannot have another season of what we saw from Jake Brendel. You just cannot. So I think it's absolutely worth it. By the way, you mentioned Hronis Grasu. Do you know who he's married to?
No.
He's married to Sabrina Ionescu, the WNBA.
The basketball player? No way.
Yeah. Yes. I could not believe it. They are married.
She's a Bay Area legend.
Like, I was like, hold on, this can't be accurate. He is. They're married. It's a real thing. It's the truth. There you go. Look, if you're watching on the stream, you can see it.
So I bring up Hornets Grasu and you Google him, and the first thing that comes up is her.
Oh, I've known about this, because I heard the first time I heard it, I was like, that can't be. What? Like, how? How did they even meet?
Honestly, I had no idea. And to your point, and I saw Tony talk about it, I know how 49ers fans love their legacy players. Chris Dahlman, Drew Dahlman, there's your legacy player. Everybody wants Terrell Owens' son and Jerry Rice's son and Frank Gore's son and anybody's son. Here's a guy who can actually play football that you guys should want. And some other stuff. Ranked 4th overall in PFF grade, 78.8. Rounding out the top 10 as both a pass blocker and a run blocker. Only 4 centers have produced a higher PFF overall grade than Dahlman, 84.8. But it does sound like there is a bag coming, because he's 26, and PFF is projecting him to have the 3rd highest center contract in the NFL. We've watched them send the money for Weston Richburg. And in 2019, that offense was humming. It was great. Mm-hmm. It worked. And then 2021, Alex Mack is there, partly because Deebo Samuel was incredible that season, but that was when it's the most efficient. Center is so important that now that you have a chance to stop putting Band-Aids on it, you have a 26-year-old that can be there and be there for years, and you can lock him in. I think that this is probably the one, like, go all in move. If you don't sign a splashy free agent, if you don't bring somebody else in, I would be fine with just this and your draft class and whatever veterans you decide to add in the offseason.
We've seen them make a splashy move when we didn't think one was possible. Nobody had Javon Hargrave coming to the 49ers. Now, it didn't work out, but they paid the money. Like, they made the move. So you can't just rule it out, because we've seen them willing to take big swings, which is another reason, Jay, why they need to get Brock Purdy's deal done fast, quick, and in a hurry, because that will have so much impact on, hey, can we sign this guy? Can we give him the 3rd highest center contract? They can't know that unless they know exactly what the cap hits are going to be for Brock Purdy in every single year. So that's why you got to get Brock deals done by the new league year, so that you can go into free agency with a plan to get Dahlman if you want him, or whoever you want to get.
And the other thing is, you have to expect yourself to be in a bidding war for Dahlman, because people overpay offensive linemen on a daily just because it's so scarce. Imagine someone that people consider to be very good. So now, yeah, you might be setting it and projecting the 3rd best or the 3rd highest contract. But when someone goes high and you got to go higher, you might find yourself, bidding with other teams. People aren't just letting Chris Dahlman slide. Like, this isn't something where we're like, hey, no one knows. No, people know 26-year-old centers are not growing on trees, especially ones with experience and their arrows pointing up. So it's going to be very interesting to look at how the 49ers get this done. And if you do knock down the Purdy thing, again, get it done, protect your investment by investing in the center position, and don't sell me anymore and gaslight us into the Jake Brendel's better than you think he is. We all have eyes. We've all had issues with the way this has gone this season. If you can lock that in for years, it is worth the investment, not only by fortifying the line, but protecting your investment. So they've got to watch out, because even mid-tier guys like Aaron Banks is going to get paid somewhere. Aaron Banks is going to get paid. And 49er fans, no matter what number that is, they're going to say that's an overpay. But that's just the reality of it. You don't braid offensive linemen and you overpay offensive linemen, because you need to get those guys in the building.
I completely agree. I get that they can't go and pay every single spot on the offensive line the way they pay Trent Williams. I get it. Like, I completely understand it. This is not where you skimp, right? This is not, you skimp on seat warmers on a car. You skimp on stuff like that. You don't skimp on airbags. This is an airbag for Brock Purdy. This is your most important position on the offensive line. You're going to spend the money on Purdy. You might as well spend the money to protect him. And by the way, I saw a question here from somebody. Niner Faithful says you can't get Brock Purdy's deal done till the new season starts. That's not true. You could sign Brock Purdy today. As we are speaking, they can announce the deal. They do not have to wait for the new league year in March. So there is no reason to not have that wrapped up. You mentioned the super chat. This comes from the unfaithful perspective. As much as I'd like Kansas City to lose, if the Eagles win, they will have accomplished something the Niners couldn't in the same 2 tries, and they also have the better roster moving forward. It's like losing thrice. I've said, Jay, as much as I want to, I hate the Eagles. I can't root for the Eagles. I think I'm rooting for the Chiefs, believe it or not.
Oh, that's right. There's a football game at the Kendrick Lamar concert next week. I forgot about that. Look, there's nothing I can do about this. I don't want either team to win. Someone has to win. And I've Googled it and tried to look as fast and as much as I can about, can both teams lose somehow? And I've even toyed around with an idea, joking on Twitter, like, the NFL really wants to spice things up. They need to have like a money in the bank type thing where a team can just run in and challenge somebody right away. By God, it's the Niners music. And we can just run in there and just and take the spot, Now the parameters, just come out and tunnel. That's the Niners music, my God. And the thing is, if you lose, then you lose 3 first-round picks. Gotta really set it up so you could be strategic. You can't just let it go all the way, whatever. But in this case, look, both teams are very deserving, right? They are. The Kansas City Chiefs thing it's more problematic because I think this year it's been more apparent than ever that they're literally going to get every single break, call, whatever, right? Like you have Josh Allen clearly getting a first down. Nah, it's not a first down. It's 4th down. Go do it, right? If there's a 50-50 ball that jumps up in the air, all of a sudden the Chiefs have it in their hands. Or just I've gotten to a point where it's not like, oh, the refs are making it happen or it's rigged or anything like that. And a little bit kind of just marveling at how doesn't matter. You want us to win in a shootout? You want us to win ugly? You want us to win in the last second? We'll do it all. It's just this streak of 1-score game wins. It's something that you'll probably never see ever again. Even Tom Brady didn't have a streak like this. He would lose some 1-score games, right?
17 straight 1-score game wins for the Chiefs. There was a 0.1% chance of that happening, and it has happened. It's absurd. I mean, even the luck that goes against them doesn't hurt them. The Bills recovered 5 fumbles in the AFC Championship game, and the Chiefs still won. Josh Allen has 1 turnover in 4 career playoff matchups with the Chiefs. He has 11 combined touchdowns in those games. He has played as good as you could play in those games and has still lost. I can't believe that after Brady and Belichick and the Patriots, Jason, we have this Chiefs, and there was no break in between.
Yeah, it was the age of Brady. Now it's the age of Ultron. Not like that movie where it was 2 days. That's not an age. That's the shortest age I ever seen in my life. Age of Ultron was supposed to happen over years, and this is what we're seeing right now. But look, it is what it is. It's not what I want. It's not what you guys want, because one of these teams is going to hoist the trophy, and it's going to be tough for us this offseason because no matter who it is, at least with the Chiefs, I can say this. Yes, we have a rivalry, but again, I've been on record saying it's not a rivalry until you win a game. It's just you just getting your ass kicked. But they won't come and say ha ha to us. I feel like after, right? Like, because this is like we weren't in it at all this year. Now, if the Eagles win, oh baby, are they about to just start like loading up on us just because of the trash talk between the players, the fans, and how 49ers fans don't like Eagles fans and all. It's just that one might be harder to take. The only way that I would be able to deal with the Chiefs thing is say, well, they've just done something that nobody's ever done, and I've been alive to see it. I don't know. Maybe that's just copium.
Here's the thing: they've won so much. It's like, what's one more? Like I've lived through that. Especially at least this one, it won't be my team that they're beating. I can't take the insufferable Eagles fans, man. I can't take it. I don't think that their coach is any good, but if you look at his resume, like his resume is way better than Kyle Shanahan's resume. Way better. He's been to 2 Super Bowls already. He's won like 70% of his games in his career, and he's only been coaching for 4 years. Like, I get that there's context with Kyle and all of that, but on paper, Sirianni looks like a great coach. But when you watch him and what he does and says, you're like, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
No. He just walks around with Big Dom. I mean, Vic Fangio has really transformed that defense, and obviously they did a great job drafting. This is Howie Roseman's team.
Yep.
Howie Roseman is the guy, and I think that's where we are, right? Sirianni is a guy that's just kind of like, I'm not messing it up. I'm not here to mess it up, right? Like you handle the ins and outs and the decisions and things like that. Vic Fangio fixed his defense in a season because last year, this season, was derailed based on defense, and the 49ers absolutely whooped them. And then they changed offensive coordinators. Kellen Moore is going to be a hot name next season as well too. Doesn't look like he's going to make it this year, but yeah, I mean, but still, like the Eagles have had a great season, and they're a great team, and they deserve to be there. And they've done it by drafting well. They've done it by bringing in. Also, I do want to give credit to the Washington Commanders. Nobody could have seen this coming. Shout out to Adam Peters. He's done a great job immediately getting those guys right there to that position. They've got a great one in Jaden Daniels. They've got another draft class. They hit on their cornerback. They hit on a guard. Ben Sinat's going to come along next year, man. Good for them, man. That was a lot of fun to watch, man. And it kind of made it better because Washington eliminated the Lions, who were using their win over the 49ers as their Super Bowl. So it's kind of funny about like, hey, man, we know you want to get your lick back, but wouldn't you rather lose to the 49ers during the season and then go and handle the job? But hey, it's not my place to tell them what's important and what's not.
Yeah, we'll see if we ever hear from the Lions again. Aaron Glenn is gone. Ben Johnson's gone. A couple coaches followed Ben Johnson is typically what usually happens. And maybe they'll be able to do it again. Maybe. But I got to see that before I believe it.
Well, this isn't a Commanders, Chiefs, or Eagles or, whatever podcast, but it was good to talk about that. Football was great. This weekend, I had a lot of fun watching it. I watched it at a Bills bar, but unfortunately, those Bills fans were crestfallen. So yeah. I've never seen a place exit out quicker. Maybe I did. It was last year when we did the party in San Francisco and the 49ers lost. That place is emptied out immediately. But I wanted to play a little game with you, and we're talking about free agency so we can bring it back. The 49ers free agencies. I want to give you a 1 to 10. Your feeling on how likely are they to return. And then I'll throw some curveballs at you of some guys that aren't free agents and what you think they'll do and how they'll come back. So Talanoa Hufanga, what do you think? 1 to 10.
How likely is he to come back?
Yes.
4.
I think it's 4 as well, too. I do think that because Hufanga is highly regarded across the league, I do think the New York Giants make a push to go get him in there. And the problem is that they lost Xavier McKinney, so they're trying to get in this whole way. I would see them being clear of kind of giving Hufanga a big bag to come in and play safety for them. So yeah, I got it at 4. Yeah, as well too. I'd love to have him back, but when you see a former All-Pro, a young guy who is hitting the market, it goes back to what we were talking about with offensive line. There's going to be suitors. There's not people out there that are just like, oh, well, we don't want to have him. The 49ers are going to have to get into a back and forth. and they're gonna have to figure out whether they want him back at his price or they want him back altogether. And I just think that someone is going to pay him a little bit more. And my bet is the New York Giants, at least just off the rip.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier. Like, how many bidding wars are the Niners really going to win? So if
Exactly.
comes sniffing around these guys, chances are they're probably going to lose that bidding war. So I bet a 4 with Hufanga.
All right, Aaron Banks, 1 to 10.
0.
0. Yep, 100%. I don't think he's back at all either. I think they have a few options if they want to go the bargain bin route. Ben Barch, Spencer Burford. They could possibly look at maybe moving Pooney, but then who's your right guard? But I do think that they have an idea of what they can do without signing someone who's a bigger name or making a move for somebody high up in the draft. Yeah, I've got it as 0 as well too.
Yeah, I just think that the Niners have done a good job of not paying people that they shouldn't pay. Mike McGlinchey, Exhibit A. Like, was he the worst tackle in the league? No, but they knew what he was going to get on the market, and they knew they had no business going there. And I think the same thing is going to happen with Aaron Banks.
All right. So we've got 2 down. Dre Greenlaw, what do you think?
6.
I got it as 7, actually. I think when I start to hear from certain people, right? Because Mike Silver was all over the coaching stuff, and when you hear Mayoko and you hear some other people starting to say, it may be, I see him back on this, doesn't mean that they necessarily are in those negotiations. It's just kind of the feeling, the sense that they're getting. I feel more confident than I ever have about Greenlaw coming back, and you know what? If he wants to bet on himself and take a $6 million deal and then come back to the market, then you're gonna have a hell of a market if you don't already now. I just think my only concern, and I voiced it earlier, is it was 34 snaps over 2 games. It was 4 snaps in Miami, 30. But man, if you're worried about that Achilles and coming back, the only thing you really need to worry about is just whether it's gonna flare up again. The guy looked as dominant as ever, right? Like, so I don't know what's the real hesitation. You can get your doctors and look and go through a plan. But I get scared that somebody's just going to say, you know what, screw it, let's make a move and let's send him the money.
When there was a clip of him and he was asked, what do you want for Christmas?
Money.
And he said, money. And so I was like, here's the thing. If everything's equal, I think he'll go back to the 49ers, especially with Saleh back, right? Like, he'll be like, you know what, I'll do the 1 year and he'll make me look good and I'll get paid. But if somebody's out there that throws him some bucks and says, screw it, we'll roll the dice and we're willing to go for it, I think he's going to go. So that's the question, is like, is there one team out there that just says YOLO, F them dollars, and throws out, a big contract for him?
Especially somebody who's a newer GM or a head coach who wants to get off on the right foot and start to show that they can win right away. That's how you kind of turn things around, right? Like, you get like Aziz Al-Shaair, right? Houston gets in there and, he set the franchise record for tackles in Tennessee. Like, that just feels like kind of like where it's going. Like, a lot of people are where to get.
If Robert Saleh had been hired by the Jags, I could see the Jags paying Dre Green. Like, I could see Saleh being like, I'm willing to take the risk because I know what this guy is. So, but now that Saleh's in San Francisco, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a little bit more confident right now. Call it blind faith, blind optimism, but that's just where I'm at. Mooney Ward, what do you think?
0 for
0.
Personal reasons, and I don't think I think the Niners see him as somebody that's on the back end and not likely to get any better. 0 for many reasons.
Yeah, I think it's 0 because I do think, again, the league does have a high opinion of him, and they're just going to write off what happened this season to the personal tragedies, the injuries, the coordinator. I still think that people still view him in a top 10 cornerback discussion. So I do think that somebody's going to pay him. And again, when you throw into the fact that he was talking about how his wife wants to leave California following the tragedies, I think it's obviously done. But even if there was a chance that maybe they could bring it back, I just think that he's too well liked and his perception is too high around the league. Even if you think, hey, he's 29, they can still get things done with him. And depending on the scheme, people are going to throw money at him. So yeah. All right. I think those are the free agents that are pressing. But let's play who's here that might not be here. I think it's all but certain. I'm going to leave Javon Hargrave out of this. It's all but certain. That was set up for a post-June 1 cut. So we don't have to worry about that. Oh, here we go. Here's a good one. Restricted free agent, Jordan Mason.
Here's the troubling thing about Mason. Every
Mhm.
time he was the man, he couldn't handle physically the load. He got hurt every single time. And is that someone you can count on? No. The problem is the whole 49ers running back room is like that. Christian McCaffrey, we don't know if he's going to be healthy. Elijah Mitchell, God bless his soul. I mean, he's never healthy. Now Jordan Mason, not healthy.
He's a free agent too, actually, I think. If I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
Mitch. Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah.
So then now it's restricted free agency. So what tender do they put on him? That's the question, right? If they put a second round tender, nobody's going to give up a second round pick for Jordan Mason. So if it's like a third or I'll say 6 that he's back.
6. I think I'm with you on 6, and I think it's more for what you said is that you have to load this room up because you don't know what's about to happen. And he still ended up like 13th in the league in rushing, which was crazy to me. Like guys played their entire season and like didn't even like get close to that. So yeah, I think the struggles with him were more converting in the red zone more than anything, like not being able to finish those drives and punctuating those drives. But he was great in between the 20s and he was reliable for a few weeks. The injury thing is a concern, but you have to have as many guys as possible to make sure that you're good with that offense. And you have to stop Kyle Shanahan from drafting a running back. Like someone when the 3rd round comes around, someone like put some chloroform on a napkin and put it over Kyle Shanahan's mouth and just take him out of the room. Like get him out of the room. So yeah, I do think that the way that you mitigate that is by saying, hey, look, McCaffrey, not McCaffrey, Mason, and Garendo, and we'll figure out, who's somebody that we can pick up, from the scrap heap that we can do.
Thor Nystrom, who I follow for a lot of draft news, he's at the Senior Bowl now.
Love Thor.
He tweeted, in my decade doing this, I'd never advocated for this, but a team that needs multiple running backs this spring should absolutely use 2 picks on running backs in April. Starting round 3, Jason, you're going to get a round or more discount on where guys would have gone last year. Brace yourself, buddy. Buckle up. It's happening.
Well, at least it's a running back and not a kicker, right? Right?
Well,
no, the 49ers met with a kicker at the Senior Bowl.
It's happening again. I saw Eric Branch had an article. It was like, given the 49ers investment in Jake Moody, they're probably going to keep him, but they'll bring in competition. It's like, who cares that you drafted this guy in the 3rd round? Like you can't get the pick back no matter what. Keeping him now because you took him in the 3rd round a couple years ago makes no sense. If you think he sucks, get rid of him.
Yeah. Just like you did with Trey Sermon and Ty Davis Price and, like just cut the cord. All right. Kyle Juszczyk, 1 to 10.
10, but I shouldn't say 10. 9, but he shouldn't be back, but I think he will be back, although I wouldn't be shocked if they asked him to take another pay cut.
I think he'd be really, really hurt if they asked him that again, too. And I
Tough
think well, look, I'm not saying that. Look, I think the problem is this because I'm with you and I was about to back you up here. I do think he's coming back, though. Like, by the way, I don't think that they're ever going to let him go. He's part of the clique.
Mm-hmm.
I see how many teams use fullbacks. And it's Miami, and it's us, and it's Baltimore, and at times in Buffalo. The league is pivoting so far away from that and, a little bit different. Like, I understand you have your brand of football, but the idea that having him on the field without, maybe you get Ricky Pearsall on the field and start throwing the football a little bit more there, right? Like, and run the football out of those formations. That's just, again, my simple football brain is just saying you run a league high of 21 personnel. No one else but you and Miami run it that frequently, and you guys are like 40% above the league average, and everyone else runs 11 personnel, which is about a 60% thing, and you're at the bottom of it. Do I mean that you need to just copy everyone else? No, but this is the evolution that we're kind of talking about, where it's like we want to see this offense change and evolve, and that's what we were happy about you getting 2 separators at the wide receiver position, and it felt like you're ready to turn this thing over, and Jawan Jennings breaks out, and who knows what's going to happen with Brandon Ayuk. But you bringing back Juszczyk almost signifies, stop. We're not getting too far away from what we want to get into, and we want to keep this. I know that the team is fine with it. I know that the team feels like it's on them because they didn't execute and they were injured. But I'm just talking about the mindset, and this is again process of results again. I don't like the connotation of bringing him back.
If nothing ever changes, nothing ever changes. Like, I get that they like having Juice in there because he helps keep the other team in their base defense some of the time, and they feel like they can take advantage of that, and that's all well and good. If you want to keep using a fullback, I'm fine with that too. I'm just saying, find somebody new, find a cheaper option. You don't have to pay Kyle Juszczyk for like the 45% of snaps that he's on the field at the level that you're paying him at. Somebody else can do those things. I promise you. I really do. Like, he's not the only guy on the face of the earth that could pretend to block somebody and then go out and catch a braille route down the sideline. Like, he really isn't. I swear to God. So I'm just saying, again, when every dollar matters, why are you giving so much to the fullback who you don't use to ever get enough value for what you're paying?
I love when people are like, "Oh, he's the best fullback in football." There's like 6 of them.
Right.
Like, like I would hope so. But yeah, I just think again, when you look at who he is, how much he's loved, if they're able to work something out for a little bit cheaper, I'm sure he wants to give another go at it with his group as well too. I think they meet in the middle. They're definitely going to ask him to fix the contract, and it won't be nearly as much. But it's less about the money, in my opinion, and more about just that I just want to see a little bit different, stuff, like just a little bit more. Like, it almost feels like the McVay tree was the one this year that was changing things up and evolving. So like McVay and Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen, and it's no mistake that those guys all got jobs as well too. So we'll see. Speaking of the Cabo clip, Deebo Samuel.
I was convinced that they were going to get rid of him, and then I was convinced that they were going to keep him. I really don't know. I think it's a 5, to be honest with you. I think that Kyle likes him. I think that Kyle still thinks he can be a good player, but also, like, dude, you can't have some of the stuff from him that you have seen when he's supposed to be one of your highest paid players, and he's so limited now. He's so limited as a player. I think the problem is, what are they going to get for him? Is anybody going to give up a 4th? If somebody offered a 4th, I think they might do it, but nothing lower than that. And that's the problem, is that I don't think anybody's going to offer a 4th.
7. I think he comes back. And here's why. The timetable with Brandon Ayuk, we don't know. Will Kyle Shanahan be able to look himself in the mirror and say, I'm good with Jennings, Pearsall, Cowing while I wait for Ayuk to get back? I don't think so. I don't think he does. And if Brandon Ayuk was healthy, ready to roll next season with no issues, anything like that, I think this decision becomes far easier. But I do know this about Kyle Shanahan. Not what I can project. What do I know? And I'd rather have Deebo Samuel around because I know that he can do this. I know that he can do that. And it's more just based on the idea that Brandon Ayuk's not going to be ready right off the bat. And it's going to be a while. And it may be, worst case scenario, maybe the entire season. Can you see yourself clear of just Jennings and all these guys? Go for it.
Here's the thing, though. Like, I get why you're saying that. But like, how much insurance does Deebo Samuel really give you? Would you be comfortable with Jennings and Cowing and Pearsall? Kind of. Deebo Samuel cannot get open against man coverage. I just went back the other day because I'm a psycho and watched the JT O'Sullivan breakdown of Brock Purdy in the Super Bowl. There are plays in the Super Bowl where Deebo Samuel's getting locked down in man coverage by a linebacker. Cannot separate. In the Super Bowl. Like, so the name is great to have around, right? Oh, you could say Deebo Samuel's there. But in practice, like, I don't think he actually is that much insurance. Anytime they draw up a game plan for him, the offense sputters. Like the game against the Lions, when they were going up and down the field in the first half, Deebo Samuel touched the ball one time. He had one touch. They didn't need him at all. Like, I think the name is way bigger than the game at this point for Deebo. And I know they love him, and Kyle's always let him get away with everything that he doesn't let any other receiver get away with. But I'm sorry, man. It's not there anymore. He's a $23 million kick returner.
You're going to eat your words when you find out that he's in the best shape of his life going into training camp again.
Right. Oh, Deebo Samuel, he looks so good. He decided to give a crap this year, and he's actually in shape. Like, I'm tired of that, man. This dude's supposed to be a captain. No.
I think he's definitely coming back just again. If Ayuk was ready to roll, like no issues. And this is my point. Dazzler says bringing Debo and Juice back. How's this offense evolving? Exactly.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not. Again, I worry about. I guess I worry about this entire point for the team is writing this year off as a one-off because of all the injuries and not really looking into the finer things of like, you know what? Yeah, we were injured. Yeah, we didn't execute. Yeah, we had some horrible luck. But what about some of the things that we can fix? And I think they've done that on defense, right? Like schematically, you bring in Salah, all that stuff. But I worry that they just say, you know what, man? It was just not our year. But we'll get right back to doing what we normally do this year. And that comes off at least, if not negligent, at least a slight bit arrogant.
Yeah, it comes off as just not self-aware, right? Like that's why that comment from Lynch during the year about the root causes, we're going to address the root causes. That was an encouraging thing to hear because it wasn't like, hey, we're just going to write this year off to injuries. And I do think that some of the other years of this regime, they were correct in saying that. 2020, crushed by injuries. I think that was accurate. Obviously, what happened to Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game against the Eagles, like, yeah, you can brush that off. But this wasn't that. This wasn't a year where you won 10, 11 games. You won 6 games this year. You collapsed in the fourth quarter of games this year over and over and over again. You couldn't score in the red zone this year. And you can sit there and say, yeah, it was all due to injuries. Other teams had injuries too, and they didn't struggle as much as the 49ers did. So they better take an honest look at themselves and reassess and figure out what needs to be fixed. Because if they think it was just injuries, they're wrong.
Yeah. And I'm not here to slam Deebo Samuel or anything like that because I do feel, and there's plenty of examples on film of the play concept being good, but a block being just missed, like, a little bit. Again, it goes to the execution, and we have to talk about with Kyle. But it's not something that you can point to regularly. And you still look at, and Deebo still led the team in missed tackles forced somehow and yards after the catch. And I think a lot of that was padded with the long, touchdown in Seattle and everything as well. I do think there's juice in there, but how much juice, and is the juice worth the squeeze?
It could be a situation where he doesn't I could almost feel it like JD Drew with the Red Sox back in the day, right? Where he did nothing all year and then he hit the one home run. You like that reference? You didn't think I was?
I don't like that reference, but fine. If it works, I get it.
I could see Deebo having another year like he just had, but then in the playoffs, he has one of those plays where he catches a slant, breaks 3 tackles, and runs for a touchdown. And you're like, damn, that's why they kept him on the roster.
Well, even last year in the NFC Championship game, they're down and he goes to Kyle Shanahan like, get me the ball. They did, and it worked. So again, there's juice in there. He's not washed. That's a word that gets thrown around far too much. Not washed, but how much juice is left, and is the juice worth the squeeze? Daza says going to take a hell of a lot more than Salah and a good draft to get back to the Super Bowl. NFC's a lot more competitive than prior years. Yeah. I think if the playoffs has kind of taught us anything, and I think Rob has wanted to see the Lions without Ben Johnson, so we can find out what Dan Campbell is. Let's figure this out, right? The Eagles have played very well. The Packers kind of flamed out there at the end. How much of that has to do with their quarterback? So how do you feel about that? The Vikings are likely to not bring back Sam Darnold, and they're going to be running with JJ McCarthy. So how much of that team, by the way, I could see the Vikings totally signing Mooney Ward and having him play outside for them as well, too, with Brian Flores. And then in the 49ers division, Seattle, Arizona's Arizona. The Rams had a really good season. How much longer can Matthew Stafford do it? Sure, the NFC's competitive, but Dallas is going to be out of it because Schottenheimer's there, so I don't even consider them. The Giants are far away. The Saints, the Falcons, the Bucks. Now Baker Mayfield's going to have another offensive coordinator. Like, the NFC is competitive, but it's not this gauntlet juggernaut that I think that it. And I think when you factor in 4th place schedule, everybody being there, another good draft class, you kind of hope all those things. Sure, delusion, blind optimism, whatever. It's still kind of right there in front of you. But again, I don't want the 49ers to rest on their laurels of, yeah, last season was just a one-off and we have all these things factored in. I need you to take a deep look at the man in the mirror and figure out what are the things that we can improve on that are outside of the things that we can't control. And injuries are things you can't control, personal tragedies you can't control any of that.
Mhm.
But what is the next step in this offense? What is the next step towards catching up to other offenses and getting back to the explosive nature of your offense? Is it just purely offensive line? Is it purely getting 3 wide receivers on the field? I think all of these things need to be evaluated. But the idea of, well, it was just a one-off season, we're just going to run it back because 2 years ago we were really good with this scheme and this talent. That's the part that'll make me a little bit afraid.
And that's why I want to see more investment in the offensive line, because no matter what you do, it helps, right? If you want to keep the offense exactly the same, great. Get 2 new offensive linemen, the offense will be way better. If you want to change it up completely, great. Get 2 offensive linemen. They'll help you run whatever system you want. Like whatever you do, the offensive line will help. Improving the offensive line helps. So that's where I want to go, because I feel like that's what gives you the most options. And hell, like you don't know what could happen next year. Like we had Deebo Samuel, right? Became a running back for a year because everybody got hurt. Like we have no idea what's going to happen. You have a good offensive line, you give yourself more options. So that I feel like is just protection, for yourself. Like do that, and then you can worry about the other stuff and you'll have more options regardless of the stuff that you can't control, like you just talked about.
And that's another reason why I think Deebo Samuel comes back. We're talking about the running back room and who can you rely on. When someone gets injured, it's not next man up. It's more Deebo stuff. That's another reason why I think he comes back.
True.
Daza says, NFC not a juggernaut. We struggled against our own division this year. Can we win our division? Yeah, they can. I think they can. You look at a lot of the teams that are going to be in transition. Stafford's there. Obviously, the Rams are going to be a problem, and they're always going to be in your way. Seattle is who Seattle is. Arizona, you kind of felt like they were going to take the next step. I don't know. I really don't know. And then I forgot Washington as well, too. I got to, get back on board with like the NFC. Washington's good. But yeah, the NFC West isn't a juggernaut like anymore or anything like that. And again, you look at that second Seattle game, how much of that has to do with the fact that Nick Bosa leaves that game at the end and they allow Geno Smith to run in. But, when they were healthy, they fully smacked the Seahawks. The Rams game, Ronnie Bell can't catch a football. Boom, you get a loss in that game as well, too. So the 49ers didn't get blown away. The Arizona game, you lose your kicker. You can't kick field goals. Jordan Mason fumbles in the red zone. You have that cover 0 blitz. All of these things, those games were close. So divisional games are going to be like that. But I don't look at this division as like it's unwinnable or anything like that right now. You just look at the Rams that are really going to be in front of you. Everyone else you can take care of because you're just better than they are.
The opportunity will clearly be there for the 49ers. They just have to handle their business this offseason. And to their credit, through 23 days or 24 days, whatever it's been, they have so far.
Yep. A for the offseason so far. That is subject to change when we find out what's going to be going on with free agency and the combine and everything. Want to thank you guys for tuning into another episode of the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Make sure you subscribe to the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio podcasts. Make sure you follow Rob on Twitter at StatsOnFire. Follow me on Twitter at JasonAponte2103. Follow Steph at Steph49K. If you're looking for Senior Bowl prospects and you're looking for news and videos, nobody better to go to. Shout out to Steph. Keep grinding. I'm getting a little bit of FOMO. Like I'm seeing everybody being there and I was just like, damn it, man. But for Rob, for Jay, thank you guys again. We're out of here.
Peace.